If you want talk, games, and fun all rolled into one, well, you've come to the right place. This is The Game Show, where host Bradley Clarke and his special guests talk about the world of television game and competition shows. But Bradley's guests aren't here to just talk. They came to play a game as well. What will today's topic be? What game does Bradley have planned? There's only one way to find out.
It's time to start the show.
You heard the man. Welcome to The Game Show. And here's your host, the Bradster himself, Bradley Clarke.
Turn that frown upside down because The Game Show will make your day less boring and gray. I wrote that myself. Thank you so much, Austin Angelo, and welcome everybody to another exciting episode of The Game Show, the talk show all about the world of television game and competition shows. I'm Bradley Clarke, the Bradster, and for today's show, I welcome on a first-time guest who is one of the finest game show producers of the 21st century and has worked on a number of programs that have defined the game show scene of the last 20 years.
Why is this interior designer losing it? What has this property manager feeling so defeated?
I'm going down like a sweet muffin.
Why is this journalist trembling with fear?
I'm so scared. I don't want to go.
They're all about to fall through the floor.
Look out below.
This is High Stakes Trivia. This is Who's Still Standing. One hero versus 10 total strangers in a series of intense head-to-head trivia battles. Miss just one question, and you'll fall through the floor. If the hero drops all 10 strangers, he will win $1 million.
Earlier tonight, armed guards picked up $1 million in cash from a secret vault. It was transported under maximum security to our protected set, where the entire million will be handed over to one couple. Their challenge? Hang on to it through the most heart-pounding game ever imagined.
I'm Kevin Pollak, and this is the $1 Million Money Drop.
On the all-new Don't Forget the Lyrics, superstar Mark McGrath is challenging contestants to sing the greatest hits.
I want to lock him on the line.
And when he gives them the mic, they either know it
But I'm the only one who walk across the fire, baby.
or blow it.
Hello, come on, those can't be the right words.
It's the game show that really rocks.
You're on your way to big money.
Don't forget the lyrics.
That's right, among other shows, he was a co-executive producer on the three game shows you just heard cuts from, Who's Still Standing, $1 Million Money Drop, and Don't Forget the Lyrics. Recently, he executive produced the TBS game show The Misery Index, starring Jamila Jamil and the Tenderloins, aka the Impractical Jokers, Sal, Joe, Murr, and Q. Please welcome game show producer, Jack Martin. Jack, thank you so much for joining me today on the game show.
My pleasure, Bradley. Great to talk to you.
It is such a pleasure having the opportunity to chat game shows with you today. And just so the audience knows, I gratefully had the chance to work with you on season 2 of The Misery Index. So that is how we met and know each other. Unfortunately, we didn't have too many opportunities to talk during the production dates. So I'm glad we now have this time to walk down memory lane of your game show producing career.
Sure. Whatever I can tell you. It's been a fun 25 years making TV shows.
And we're going to talk about a lot of the shows that make up your 25 years of television producing. However, two of the biggest shows that you had the chance to work on, Deal or No Deal and 1 vs. 100, I decided to hold off on for this interview for two reasons. The first is, between the two shows, I have so many questions and curiosities that they deserve an episode of their own. And second, December 19th, 2020 and October 13th, 2021 are the 15th anniversaries of both NBC game shows respectively. So I'm hoping sometime between those two dates you will join me again on the game show as my special guest so we can celebrate and chat about both milestone anniversaries.
I'd be happy to. Those are two very special shows.
a lot of my questions were going towards those two shows anyway, so I figured let's devote a whole episode to that at a later date. But today, I'm so excited to talk about a lot of your other shows. And then later on, I have created an original version of a game show that you produced for you to play right here on the game show.
Fantastic.
So are you ready to chat game shows with me?
Let's do it. Let's chat game shows.
Excellent. So I like to start off by asking many of my guests, were you a game show fan growing up? And if so, what were some of your favorite game shows to watch?
I was not an adamant fan, but I really liked Sale of the Century. And I had a neighbor who was on Wheel of Fortune and some relatives who really liked Jeopardy. So I'd say those three. And as a real little kid, Richard Dawson's Family Feud, watched that a lot. And Bradley, I created a thing called Anything for Rancho, which was a game show, variety show for my junior high school in 1986. And I'm very proud to say they're still doing Anything for Rancho. My parents still live in that town. And the teacher who I created it with retired the other year. She's like, just tell Jack Anything for Rancho is still every spring. So I had the game show variety bug and wanted to work in TV since I was a little kid. Just didn't know how to do it. So it took me a long time to figure it out.
So what was your first experience in the television industry?
I went to school at Colorado State and had a degree in speech. My father's a salesman. My mother is a teacher. And I didn't want to do either of those things. So a good friend of mine had a brother and a sister-in-law in the business. And as I finished college, I just wanted to work in television. So I took whatever I could get, and I got offered an unpaid internship at ESPN, and they had 140 interns, I think, for the summer. And I got offered an internship at Hard Copy on the Paramount lot, and they had 6. And I wanted a job, so I went with Hard Copy. My humble beginnings, unpaid intern at Hard Copy in 1995.
And then what was the first game show that you got to work on?
Deal or No Deal, believe it or not. You know, I did Ripley's Believe It or Not, and then I did a lot of things for Sony after my Hard Copy days, and Guinness Primetime and Kids Say the Darndest Things with Bill Cosby, and was finishing my deal with Sony, and I had done a talk show for them, and I didn't want to do any more talk shows. And I had really hoped to get in the game show environment. I really love in studio. I love the gameplay of it. And there's an old adage of most of the time contestants come on a show and they leave better than they came, hopefully with more money and a great experience and all those things. And that was kind of a positive thing that I was looking for in my life. And I went to a blind interview at Endemol. And I know we're not talking about these two shows, but it turned out to be for 1 vs. 100. And while I was in the interview, there became an opening for Deal or No Deal. So I actually got Deal or No Deal that day. And then I got the second season 1 vs. 100. Those are my first 2.
Well, when it comes to this day and age of game shows, Deal or No Deal is a pretty good one to start off with, I must say.
I felt very lucky. It had run for 6 episodes when I got the job, so I got to watch them and then just stumbled into them. And it's amazing how things change, Bradley. You know, I did those 2 shows for 4 years, and everything that I got offered or pitched was game. And I've been kind of a game show guy ever since.
The first game show you worked on that I want to talk to you about is Who's Still Standing, the NBC game show which you served as a co-executive producer on, that aired from December 19th, 2011 to January 30th, 2012. The game involved one person trying to defeat 10 other contestants, all of whom are standing on drop zones. Now, the main player faces each of the 10 contestants one-on-one, with the loser of each battle dropping through the floor. And although Who's Still Standing was the American version of an Israeli game show, Jack, when you first were introduced to the game's concept, had you heard of the American game show Russian Roulette?
I was. Not intimately, but I'd heard of it. And I knew the similarities there. When I was hired to produce that, the Israelis had their format where they had an end game on some of the shows. And I had a conference call with the Israeli creators, and they said, well, sometimes we don't like it, so we don't use it. It was funny, they didn't have compliance. So if they didn't really like the contestant that got in the final round, they just moved on to another episode. And as you know, here we have very rigid game show rules. It made my head spin a little bit as far as trying to tell our compliance teams, yeah, if we don't like it, we just won't use it. So Paul Toleti at the time, it told me, just go develop it how you see fit. But yeah, I was familiar, but I wasn't a watcher.
There were some Who's Still Standing games in which the main contestant was given 2 passes to start the game, and others where 3 passes were given to the contestants.
All right, it's Troy against Charles. This is our first battle. Troy, remember you have 2 passes. Don't forget about those. You're looking to take your first step toward $1 million. Son, you're looking to walk out of here with $10,000. $10,000 if he takes her down. Kelly is looking to take her first step toward $1 million. Don't forget your 3 passes. Each question, you are allotted 20 seconds to answer. Guess as many times as you like. If you say it, you got it. First question is to you, Sung. Here we go.
Was this increase in passes because many of the early contestants didn't make it far into the game?
What I really remember, Bradley, was the Israelis showed up and didn't like the changes I had made to their format. And so I think that might have been when they said you have to give them 3 chances instead of 2. But yes, the show was coming out really hard with no winners. So as you do when you're just starting a new format, we changed it to 3. We taped them all in, a 2-week period. But yeah, I think we started with the 2 and you saw not as many people winning. So we went to 3.
Were there ever any thoughts of giving the civilian 10 contestants a pass during their rounds?
Bradley, I'd love to tell you I remembered exactly. I do not remember. I know getting that show ready to shoot, we did run-throughs for a good 6 weeks where we ran through about 50 different scenarios with 50 different money trees. So I guaranteed at one point we thought of that, but we didn't end up keeping it.
Each challenger was worth an amount between $1,000 and $20,000, and the dollar amount was determined by how difficult it would be for the main contestant to defeat them. So how was the difficulty of each player determined? Based on contestant trivia pre-testing, or were they really just a random assignment of numbers and not actually based on a player's difficulty?
It was a little bit random. I remember we'd have a chef, and if you were going against a chef and asked a question, obviously this person is a professional chef. They should have a huge working knowledge. They're going to be harder to knock off rather than a postman being asked a culinary question.
And how great was it working alongside Ben Bailey, who hosted Who's Still Standing, but many people probably know as the Emmy-winning host of Cash Cab?
He was great. That was Ben's first in-studio show, and he worked really hard because it looked like a pretty simple game. But the thing I love to do the most is work with a host to really teach them how to play the game. And it's really neat when they become an expert at the game. And that makes them just such a better host. I use Joe McHale as a great example of had no idea. And then 2 weeks later, he could give you the rules and correct you if you were wrong. And when the host knows the show back and forth, it makes it a much better, more entertaining show to watch.
See, that's why I study all the rules and the formats and all that stuff, because I know that one day if I host either a revival or a new show, I want to be able to say that I can play the game as good as a contestant.
Exactly.
A lot of hosts say, I wouldn't be that good at the game. No, I want to be good at the game and host the game.
Right. It's very true. It helps. It really does help because you're the host. You're that person's partner up there. You're trying to get them as much money as possible. And obviously you can't help them with the answers. But if there's any questions about the rules, it's nice when you have someone right there who's supporting you can go, oh, don't do that. Or you're on the right track.
So the next show I want to talk about is Don't Forget the Lyrics. Now, Jack, am I right when I say that you only worked on the syndicated version and not the primetime version?
Yeah, I did not do the primetime Fox one. I just did the syndicated one with Mark McGrath.
So were you a fan of the Wayne Brady hosted Fox version of Don't Forget the Lyrics, and that's why you wanted to be a part of the syndicated version?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good show. I mean, really, Stephen Brown, who's an executive here, and I had crossed paths in my Sony days. He was the showrunner for Pyramid, and he was at Fox. And then I had a friend who met Jeff Aploff, and we got introduced. And when I was the co-EP and running the floor and working with contestants and really working closely with talent, Mark McGrath and I grew up in basically the same town. And I was excited, honestly, to come off 4 years of a show and be presented with Don't Forget the Lyrics, which was 160 episodes, I think, and a very tight shooting schedule. And I love music and thought it was going to be a great experience, and it was.
So how do you think you would have done as a contestant?
Terrible. I either know a genre and know the song, but I definitely make up the lyrics as I sing along in the shower. And that was one of those cases where we had the perfect host, Mark McGrath. Jeff Aploff is a savant when it comes to song lyrics, and he created the format. And Jeff, 95% of the time, knew the answers, even when we were selecting songs. He's really, really brilliant at it. And it turned out Mark McGrath, also a huge fan of all kinds of genres and really did know the lyrics to most of those songs. And I think Mark had won Rock and Roll Jeopardy. He knew his stuff. And, as we were talking about earlier, Bradley, having a host that knows really what they're doing, they don't have to worry about the content or the rules. They've got it down. Makes it so much easier. And the disservice I did to Mark McGrath was at one point we taped 10 shows a day. And to have him maintain the energy he had and use his brain for 10 episodes in a single day, he did a great job at it. I still feel bad to this day that we did that to him multiple times. We did 10 a day on syndicated Deal or No Deal, and then 10 a day on Don't Forget the Lyrics. And luckily, I haven't had to do that again.
At the time of the syndicated Don't Forget the Lyrics, Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader, which was Don't Forget the Lyrics' sister show on Fox, was also airing a syndicated show, and they had a total of 2 people win the top prize of $250,000. In addition, the syndicated version of Deal or No Deal, which you also worked on, never had anybody win the $500,000 top prize during its 2 seasons. However, Don't Forget the Lyrics in syndication had a great winning percentage because 5 contestants won the $50,000 top prize. Brad fact! With that being said, were you surprised Don't Forget the Lyrics only had a 1-season run despite a strong number of top prize winners during that first season?
I am. I think it was one of those shows that the budget was huge. Whenever using music, it's a very expensive element of the show. And I think that just comes down to the business of our business sometimes of it's a great show. We really like Mark, but the cost compared to the rating, I think just knocked it out. But yeah, we were fully geared up to go for season 2 or expecting it. And yeah, I was shocked.
Now, Syndicated 5th Grader had a $250,000 top prize. Syndicated Deal or No Deal had a $500,000 top prize. But Syndicated Don't Forget the Lyrics only had a $50,000 top prize. But for me, knowing the words to songs deserves a higher top prize than answering trivia questions or randomly picking numbers because of the specific knowledge needed. So were there ever any discussions of raising the top prize on the Syndicated Don't Forget the Lyrics if there was a season 2?
I think the budget was so tight, Bradley, at that time. I don't ever remember that being discussed. I mean, on Deal or No Deal, coming off $1 million, we fought so hard, and NBC was generous enough to give us that $500,000 case. And Don't Forget the Lyrics, you get 5 songs. Syndicated, I believe we had 22 cases. So I think they ran the numbers and said, chances are people aren't going to get $500,000 that much. And like you pointed out, 5 people in 160 shows got the top prize on Don't Forget the Lyrics. So that could have been devastating to the budget.
The second Fox game show I want to talk about is $1 Million Money Drop, which aired from December 20th, 2010 to February 1st, 2011. Now, in May of 2010, the British version of the show called the £1 Million Drop premiered, and it was a huge success.
Earlier tonight, £1 million in used banknotes was picked up from a vault in a secret location. An armour-plated vehicle transferred the money to our secure set. Guards are present and monitoring the money at all times. The studio audience have been screened and identified before being admitted. Their bags and mobiles have been confiscated. And now someone has the chance to walk away with £1 million, absolutely live, in the next hour. This is the £1 Million Drop, live.
Hi, so it is 10:02 and I am talking to you absolutely live from an extremely secure location. There's security everywhere and it's all because of this. I want to lie on it. This is £1 million in cash. Real cash, look, I've made a mess now, in used banknotes, and I am about to hand the whole lot over to someone, and only 8 questions will stand in their way of winning it.
So prior to the show coming to America, did you know about the £1 Million Drop? And if so, did you automatically think it had a chance to be just as successful in America?
I did not know about that. Once again, that was a show I did with Jeff Aploff and Fremantle brought to us. And then I watched the British one, obviously, a bunch of episodes. And was like, this is going to be great. Bradley, I would say that is one of the biggest disappointments in my career of a show that I thought had everything and didn't catch on, and obviously had some troubles that I'm sure we're going to discuss.
Yeah, I'm going to bring those up. But I think that's a prime example of shows that work other places and are very successful, because in England, it's a huge hit, and they brought it back as the £100,000 drop recently. But that's a good example of great concept, but just doesn't find the audience here in America.
Totally correct. And one of the things I loved about the British show was they taped it live. I love taping things live. And also, I remember vividly one of the final questions on that show where they had a huge winner was who was on the cover of the Daily Mirror this morning. And the people were like, oh my God. Well, of course, we get the Daily Mirror. Who was on it? And that live element and the home play along was so strong. And you lose that a little bit when you pre-tape, because we couldn't be super, super topical. And I think that really made that show a nail biter in England.
So were there ever any thoughts of doing $1 Million Money Drop live?
We pitched it. We definitely talked about it. Mark Darnell, who was great and a big backer of that show. In success, I think we would have been able to do it. But I think only doing 10 and the way that wrapped, it was a quick discussion.
All these years, I've always wondered, how are the drops removed from the set? Because after question 3, the questions went from having 4 drop zones to 3 drop zones. And for question 7, only 2 drop zones were used. So what was the process for removing the drops?
It was just a simple snap-in 10-minute change. Anton Goss designed that set, and so it was actually a really quick change. You just popped it, we reframed it, we changed Kevin's marks and the contestants' marks and went forward. It was actually really quick. It was really good design. There are so many great elements of that set that I love, and this is a credit to Mike Darnell. We had $2 million cash on hand every day we taped. And that money would come down the drops and be collected and picked up by pretty intimidating security guards and counted and checked. And it was amazing to hand people $1 million cash.
So that really was real money.
100%. That was Mike Darnell's big thing. And Jeff Aploff's like, no, it's got to be real money. And the insurance and the security was a bit nerve-wracking, but I think it made for really great gameplay because when in your life were you handed $1 million and told it's yours to lose.
Now, in the English version, there were 8 questions during the game. Was it originally supposed to be 8, or did you figure due to timing, let's just do 7?
I think that's exactly it. Because they were live and they could update the pace of how they answered questions, I think we limited it to 7 questions just so we could fit it in the 42 minutes or 41 minutes that we had to tape.
I had the chance to ask you about this during our time on the Misery Index, but I'm sure a lot of listeners are curious about the infamous $1 million money drop occurrence, so I want to ask you about it on the show today. On the first episode, a question was asked, which of these was sold in stores first? A, Macintosh computer, B, Sony Walkman, or C, Post-it notes?
The 2 categories for question number 5 are inventions, makeovers. Talk it over.
I know a few people who made some inventions.
You think they'd be asked questions about the people you know?
The makeovers, what could be makeovers?
I don't know, I'm thinking of like the shows where they do like the makeovers and stuff.
I don't watch those shows.
I do, but okay. Inventions? Inventions,
Whoa,
inventions.
Hold on. We're not ready. Hold on.
No, we're ready.
You sure?
Let's go. Inventions.
You ready?
Inventions.
All right.
Gabe?
Inventions.
Yeah. All right, inventions. All right, the 3 possible answers.
Okay.
A, Macintosh computer.
Good at computers.
Okay. B,
We're good at computers.
Sony Walkman.
Okay. I
C,
had one of those. I had one of those.
Post-it
All right,
note.
yeah, I do that every day.
All right.
I post them everywhere.
Let's see the question. Which of these was sold in stores first? Talk it over.
Wow, this is hard.
This is really hard.
Because Post-it notes is like, I'm thinking Post-it notes or Walkman, and I don't think computer, baby. Which percent sure you think it's Post-it notes?
Because Post-it notes is...
60 seconds. Start moving some money, please.
I'm gonna put them here.
Listen, the Post-it note is how 3M started in the first place.
When did they start?
3M is the company.
No, they didn't. No, they made other stuff.
I know, but it was
50 seconds.
I remember reading about
Yep.
it. It was a wacky. Basically, what happened was he like they were trying to make something else.
40 seconds.
They were trying to make something else, and they accidentally made the Post-it note.
How do you
and
accidentally make Post-it notes?
It's true. They accidentally made the Post-it note. It wasn't supposed to be. What are you doing?
No, baby. Seriously, baby.
Come in, not the Walkman.
Baby,
25 seconds. The Walkman, baby. Why would it be the Walkman? The Walkman is that's digital technology.
Fine.
They didn't have technology like that back then. That's the 80s and the 90s.
We got 17 seconds. Are you sure?
15
It's
seconds.
stores first.
Are you sure?
I'm gonna go with Post-it notes.
Okay, I'm gonna go. Okay, let's hurry up. We got 10 seconds.
Well,
baby, hurry.
Leave some.
Give some more. That's a lot of money.
Now, after placing $800,000 on Post-it notes and seeing it drop, dating couple Gabe and Brittany found out that Sony Walkman was the correct answer. However, it was later revealed that Post-it notes, which were first sold under that name in 1980, were introduced as Press and Peel in 4 U.S. cities in 1977, which is before the Sony Walkman was introduced in 1979. Brad fact!
Which of these was sold in stores first? Macintosh computer, you thought was in the 80s. You put 0 on it.
That might even...
B, Sony Walkman. Brittany said she thought it was in the 90s. You put 80,000 on it. Post-it notes. Gabe seemed to know almost the entire history of the Post-it note. And so, therefore, $800,000 sits on Post-it notes.
Oh, that's a lot of money. Gotta see, baby. Gotta see, baby. Gotta see. Baby, it's okay. We still have more money.
Post-it notes first sold in 1980.
I knew it wasn't Post-it note.
It's okay, you guys.
We
We're
have
still in the game.
$80,000.
You've got to
Still have
finish. You've got to get to that
$80,000,
seventh
We
question.
still have 8,000. Okay? Baby, we still have to go and get up. Stop.
You got $80,000 if it's Sony Walkman. $80,000 is one of the all-time great weddings, I can tell you that. We're pulling for you. You only have 2 questions remaining. It's time to step up and see if you get to hold on to $80,000 going into the last 2 questions.
It's okay. It's okay. Short live it. It's okay. Still have one more chance.
Macintosh computer sold in 1984, Sony Walkman in 1979.
So my question is, Jack, were Gabe and Brittany paid the full $800,000 because of the mistake in the question?
I can't speak to exactly what they got, but I know that it became a legal issue and they were compensated. But I don't know the specifics, quite frankly, Bradley. But it was a mess because our source was 3M that gave the release of the Post-it notes. And please don't quote me exactly on this. The inventor had made them and sold them on the Oregon coast earlier than the Walkman. Now, I don't remember the exact specifics, but it was so hard because there was no way anybody could actually know that. But factually, they were correct. And that really hit trivia game shows hard because you can only do so much research. And, our source was 3M who created Post-it Note. And we had it quadruple sourced and researched, and just a mistake was made. And it was a bummer. It did end up killing the show. And a lot of people who worked really, really hard felt awful.
Was it the research team that went back and found the information, or did the contestants reach out to you with the correct answer dispute?
I think the contestants disputed it. We definitely had a huge negative research on every single one of the questions, but it definitely changed the research that is done on game shows because you have to be able to say, according to this source. And if that source is 100%, then the answer is that. But it's very hard to research every single angle of something. And I think we did a really, really good job, but obviously it was missed. So, yeah, I believe everybody that was sued got some kind of settlement, but I'm not privy to what those numbers are or how much.
And it really is such a shame that a little known fact about the humble Post-it note is what killed the show, because I actually thought the gameplay was a unique twist on a quiz show for the American audience, giving contestants $1 million in real money and asking them to physically divide it among answer choices. It really is quite fascinating to watch.
It ended up killing the show before we even got started. We were so excited at the premiere. I thought it looked great. I thought Kevin did a really good job. Like you said, hearing people be handed $1 million and knowing that they're going to lose some of it was just an incredible game show angle. That was incredibly disappointing. I come off the great success of Deal or No Deal and thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to do this show for the next 4 years. And we did not.
In January of 2019, a Variety article revealed that Michael Strahan and his production company Smack were shopping around for an American Money Drop revival. However, what I found funny was that the article didn't mention anything about $1 Million Money Drop. So did you hear anything about this, and are you surprised that there was no mentioning of the Fox version of the show?
No, I didn't. I understand why they avoided the Fox show, but I think it probably didn't go forward because of the flaws that happened for the Endemol version. But no, I did not know that, Bradley.
Well, I like to teach my guests a thing or two since they teach me a lot of things.
I appreciate it.
Next, I want to talk about a totally different game show that you were a co-executive producer on, NBC's cooking game show, Food Fighters, which aired for 2 seasons in the summers of 2014 and 2015. The show pitted home cooks against 5 professional chefs for a chance to win up to $100,000. Coincidentally, in November of 2014, 4 months after Food Fighters premiered, Food Network debuted a new show called Kitchen Inferno, which was pretty much the same show as Food Fighters. The differences were that the contestants are professional chefs in their own right and not home cooks, There were only 4 levels, and the top prize was $25,000. Also, the contestants didn't choose the dishes in each round, and the main difference was that the contestants had to risk their money in order to advance and take on their next opponent for more money. However, the main concept of one cook taking on a number of chefs of increasing difficulty to win money was the same. Brad fact! So Jack, were you aware of Food Network's Kitchen Inferno and the similarities it had to Food Fighters?
I was not. The one thing we did with Food Fighters, which was a fantastic show and so much fun to do, we taped that and NBC held on to it for a long time before they aired it because they wanted to launch it during the summer. And as you know, there's little difference between all shows on TV, but I think people heard it went well. And I don't know what the development slate for Food Network was, but I'm not shocked. The set was amazing. The lighting was amazing on that. Adam was the perfect person to do that. And Ivan Dudensky was the director of that. We had the best time in the control room because I'd shoot it for the content and getting the food stories and all that stuff like that. And then while they were cooking, we'd send the cameras in to get all the beauty shots and just really almost taped it like a live football game. We really went by that clock that was on the stage. And it was just an exciting show to do. So many cameras and steady cams and keeping those people lit. And on that show, not only was I talking to Adam, but I was talking to the contestants and the celeb chefs through their console. And so it was great to hear both the pros and the amateur chefs talking about their thought process and what they were worried about. I just thought it was a fantastic show. We had so much fun.
Let's now talk about the show where I had the chance to meet you and work with you on, and that is TBS's The Misery Index. Now, as I mentioned at the top of the show, The Misery Index is hosted by actress Jamila Jamil and features the Tenderloins, aka the Impractical Jokers Sal Vulcano, Joe Gatto, James Murray, and Brian Quinn. Each of the 2 contestants gets paired with 2 of the Tenderloins who help them rate unfortunate human events and situations on a scale of 1 to 100 based on how miserable they think a group of psychologists graded them. First, Jack, I'd like to know how you originally got involved with the Misery Index because you started working on the show in season 2, not in season 1, right?
Correct. Ben Ravino was the showrunner on season 1, and I was the showrunner on season 2, and now the showrunner on season 3.
So when you first heard of the idea, now you didn't work on season 1, but when you first saw this concept of a game show revolving around rating miserable events, what were your thoughts?
I was curious how they did it. It is an amazing concept. Ben and Dan Newmark created it, as far as the 5 shrinks, as we call them, analyzing these headlines and this footage of where do you rank it, on these 3 pillars. And I just thought it was brilliant because I thought it was a great way to feature amazing clips, amazing headlines with Jamila, who's a wonderful, wonderful host, and also get the comedy of the Impractical Jokers in there too. I think it's a very well delivered show. I think the pace is fun. I watched it and was like, how much fun is this? And to take misery and make it funny is a gift.
Now, you said you wouldn't do too well as a Don't Forget the Lyrics contestant, but how good are you at rating the events on the Misery Index?
If you give me a range, like the last round of a range of 30, a range of 20, or a range of 10, pretty good. If you spend as much time with these segments as we do and stacking the shows and really getting to know these things, you start to get a feel for what you think it is. I mean, if you had to pick the specific number exactly, I would do horribly. But in a range, pretty good.
So on my last episode of the game show, my special guests were the creator of the Misery Index card game, Andy Breckman, and the co-executive producers of the Misery Index game show, Ben and Dan Newmark. And I asked them about the flaw of the game show that appears in round 3, which is, in the first round, each contestant gets a separate miserable event worth $500. In the second round, each contestant gets a separate miserable event worth $1,000. However, in the third round, each contestant plays the same miserable event, and the winner of the round gets $2,000. This means that since each contestant can accumulate up to $1,500 for the first 2 rounds, and only one of the 2 contestants receives $2,000 during the third round, the first 2 rounds mean absolutely nothing since you can't build up a meaningful lead before the third round. Ben explained to me that the reason for this game structure is the first 2 rounds are for the contestant to warm up to the game, and the third round is where the contestants are put to the test by showing what they have learned from the first 2 rounds because their goal is to be the master of misery and guess the exact number. So Ben said that there was a reasoning behind the format, and while it sounds like a flaw in the game, he doesn't view it as a flaw. So Jack, I was wondering what your opinion is on this, what I call flaw in the game, especially since you weren't involved with the creative process during season 1.
I think it was noticeable, but I like the Newmark's concept of we're going to get to know you, we're going to allow to add to your bank, but it really comes down to Act 3. I don't see it as a flaw, Bradley, more as a catch-all. I think it's exciting that you could miss the previous questions and then get round 3 right and you steal the show. I think that adds some drama to it. And once again, it's a great player of headlines and clips. And the gameplay is just getting to know those things. And then, okay, you've gained this knowledge. So use it in Act 3 and you get a chance to play for $30,000. So I don't think it's a flaw. I think it's a good catch-all because I think the worst would be a show where it doesn't escalate. The stakes don't get higher. So if you win the first 2 rounds and the third round is obsolete, I think that would be disappointing for the viewer.
I pitched Andy, Ben, and Dan an idea I had for round 3 to eliminate the flaw, and all 3 told me they really liked the idea, so I would love to pitch the idea to you as well to see what you think of it. For round 3, both contestants still play the same event, but during the commercial break, each contestant must decide a range they want to play with for the final misery index based on their score and their opponent's score. A 20-point range is worth $1,500, a 15-point range is worth $2,000, and a 10-point range is worth $3,000, and both contestants' ranges are revealed at the same time after they have both locked in their answers. This idea allows for an extra layer of strategy in situations where one contestant has a lead and where both contestants are tied. In addition to locking in their ranges, both contestants will lock in what they believe is the exact answer. So if there is a tie after the round is over, whichever contestant's exact guess is closer to the actual answer will be the winner. So Jack, that's my round 3 idea. What do you think of it?
So you final Jeopardy'd it.
Pretty much.
I like it. The first rule in game shows that I was taught is called keep it simple, stupid. And the only thing when you start introducing more elaborate rules to a simple show, I have found that confuses the viewer. I think from a gameplay standpoint, I think it's really smart. I think it's really great.
I appreciate it. And last question, if you could produce any game show, past or present, that you haven't already been a producer on, what game show would it be?
Harry Friedman was the showrunner for Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune for like 20 years. And I always thought that was the best gig in television, getting to tape those 2 iconic game shows at the same time. I love doing strip. I love doing multiple episodes, and I love the challenge of doing lots of them. So if I could do Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune, that'd be a career topper.
Mike Richards snatched that position away from you.
Yes, he did. He deserves it. Mike Richards is a very talented guy. That was always my goal, to see when Harry retired, to see if I'd be in a position to sneak in there. And Mike Richards beat me to it. And I'm awfully happy doing the Misery Index. We have a wonderful staff, wonderful crew. The talent is amazing. I love the concept of the show. So I'm happy for Mike, but I'm very happy.
Well, Jack, we have reached my favorite portion of the game show. And as I said at the beginning of the show, I have created a Bradley Clarke original version of a past game show that you produced. And you are about to play it right now. It is time for the game of the day.
Game of the day.
And Jack, I can now reveal that the show I am bringing back is none other than the show that celebrated its 10th anniversary last year on December 20th, 2020. And a show we talked about not too long ago during our interview, $1 Million Money Drop.
All right.
And Jack, I didn't get a chance to ask you this before. Can you believe it's been 10 years since $1 Million Money Drop premiered?
It is insane. Time flies.
So unfortunately, I don't have $1 million to give away on this game. So I had to do this game based on budgetary constraints. So I have called this game the $1 Million Point Drop. The $1 Million Point Drop. And the background music for the $1 Million Point Drop is the hit song Drops of Jupiter by the band Train. And here's how we play the $1 Million Point Drop. You're going to face 8 game show themed questions. Questions 1 through 3 will have 4 answer choices. Questions 4 through 6 will have 3 answer choices. And questions 7 and 8 will only have 2 answer choices. However, instead of giving you 1 million points to start the game, the difference with this version is you will receive 125,000 points per question. And if you do the math, 125,000 times 8 is 1 million. On each question, if you aren't sure of the correct answer, you can spread your points onto multiple drops. But as you know, there is only one correct answer, and you must always leave one drop open. Any points you place on the correct answer will be banked, and Jack, if you can accumulate a total of 500,000 points or more by the end of the 8th question, you will be deemed a winner. Those are all the rules you need to know. Jack, are you ready to become a contestant on a show that you produced 10 years ago?
I'm terrified, but yes, let's do it.
Well, you've got 1 million points. I've got 8 questions. Let's play the $1 Million Point Drop.
All right.
Now, unlike $1 Million Money Drop, you won't get a choice of 2 categories for each question. Instead, though, I'm going to give you the categories to all of the questions during each of your 3 drop zone levels. And it's up to you to choose what order you like to play them in, keeping in mind that there's always going to be 1 additional question that won't be played. Plus, there is no time limit to worry about on each question, so take as much time as you want to think about the answer and where you want to place your points. Alright, the first 3 questions will each have 4 answer choices, and here are the 4 categories you get to choose from. The Price is Right, Game Show Hosts, $1 Million Game Shows, and Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Okay.
Which would you like to start with?
Game show hosts.
Game show hosts it is, 125,000 points at your disposal. Remember, 1 drop zone must be left open. The 4 answer choices are Gene Rayburn, Jeff Edwards, Tom Kennedy, and Bert Convy.
Oh boy.
And the question: which of these classic game show hosts was born with the name James Edward Nars?
Can you give me the choices again, please, Bradley?
Sure. Gene Rayburn, Jeff Edwards, Tom Kennedy, Bert Convy.
Not real confident in this. Bert Convy, I'm going to leave open. Put 75,000 on Tom Kennedy.
Okay.
And then I'm going to put 25,000 on Jeff and 25,000 on Gene.
All right, so 75,000 points on Tom Kennedy and 25,000 points on both Jeff Edwards and Gene Rayburn. The correct answer is Tom Kennedy.
All right.
So you have banked 75,000 points.
All right.
1 down, and there's still 2 more questions left with your 4 answer choice round. So do you want The Price is Right, $1 Million Game Shows, or Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
$1 Million Game Shows.
$1 Million Game Shows it is. You're 425,000 points away from a win, and here come your 4 answer choices. Are you smarter than a 5th grader? $1 Million Mind Game, Minute to Win It, Weakest Link. And the question: which of these $1 Million Game Shows premiered in America on March 14th, 2010?
5th grader was before that. Weakest Link was before that. Minute to Win It was before that. So $1 Million Mind Game, 125,000.
Which of these $1 Million Game Shows premiered in America on March 14th, 2010? 125,000 points on $1 Million Mind Game. The correct answer is Minute to Win It.
No! 2010?
Yeah, 5th grader premiered February 27th, 2007. $1 Million Mind Game, October 22nd, 2011. And of course, Weakest Link, April 16th, 2001. Minute to Win It, March 14th, 2010 on NBC. Brad fact!
Wow.
But no worries, you still have plenty of points to bank, and your last question in the 4 answer choice rounds. You want Price is Right or Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
All right. The choices are 2, 3, 4, and 5. And the question: how many audience member silhouettes were shown on the Ask the Audience Lifeline icon on the original primetime version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Oh boy. I'm going to go 75,000 on 3, 25 on 4, and 25 on 5.
Okay. And the correct answer is B3. You got it.
Very good.
So you have 150,000 points, and we are moving on to the 3 answer choice level. Remember, you still need to keep 1 drop open, and the choices of categories now are the quiz show scandal, board game shows, game show announcers, and in honor of a man I admire greatly who we sadly lost not too long ago, the final category is about the legendary Alex Trebek. Which category do you want to start with?
Alex Trebek.
A very good choice, Jack. Alex Trebek it is, and here are your 4 answer choices. Battle Stars, the $128,000 question, and Pitfall. The question: which one of these Alex Trebek hosted game shows was not recorded in Canada?
Battle Stars. 125,000.
125,000 points on Battle Stars. And the correct answer is Battle Stars.
All right.
So you have 275,000 points.
Great.
225 left, and you still have 2 more questions in this round. So, the quiz show scandal, board game shows, game show announcers.
Quiz show scandal.
Okay. The 3 answer choices are Geritol, Revlon, Marlboro. The question: which of these companies was the primary on-air sponsor of the game show 21 from 1956 to 1958?
Geritol, 125,000.
For 125,000 points. It is Geritol!
All right.
Good evening. I'm Jack Barry. In a moment, Hank Bloomgarten and Jim Snodgrass will resume their match. To date, they have tied 6 times. Tonight, they'll be playing at $3,500 a point. Let's meet them as Geritol, the high-potency tonic that helps you feel stronger fast, presents 21.
You now have 400,000 points, which means you are only 100,000 points away from a win. So you can win the game on this next question, Jack. Board game shows or game show announcers?
Board game shows.
Okay. The choices are Monopoly, Yahtzee, Trivial Pursuit. The question: the host of which of these game shows based on a board game was a Jeopardy contestant prior to getting the hosting job?
I will do 75 on Trivial Pursuit and 50 on Yahtzee.
75,000 points on Trivial Pursuit and 50,000 points on Yahtzee. Let's find out what the correct answer is. I'm sorry, Jack. The answer is actually Monopoly.
No! Wasn't that Billy?
You're thinking of the 2015 to 2016 game show Monopoly Millionaires Club hosted by Billy Gardell. But the Merv Griffin-produced 1990 game show Monopoly was hosted by Mike Riley, a former Jeopardy contestant. Brad fact!
Got it.
Yes, Monopoly, the world's most famous board game, is now Monopoly, the TV game. Here come the players. The red player, Barry. The gold player, Bonnie. And the green player, Peter. Oh, here comes our hostess, Kathy Cargus. And here is the host of Monopoly, Mike Riley.
Thank you very much. And folks, welcome to Monopoly, where our players are about to battle to become real estate tycoons. The players, it's as easy as this. Just answer our crossword puzzle type clues and you're going to win a property. Every time you get a property, we're going to deposit its value into your bank account.
So you remain at 400,000 points, but that means you can still win on the next question. We are now moving on to the final stage of the million-point drop. These next 2 questions will only have 2 answer choices, and since you must always leave 1 drop open, these questions are all or nothing. And Jack, here are your 3 categories to choose from. Match game, Wheel of Fortune, or 1980s game shows?
1980s game shows.
You got it, 1980s game shows. Your 2 choices are Jim Perry and Jim Lang. And this is the question. Who hosted the syndicated game show Bullseye, which aired from September 29th, 1980 to September 24th, 1982?
Jim Perry.
You say Jim Perry. All 125,000 points have to go on Jim Perry. And let's see if you are correct and won this game. Unfortunately, it's Jim Lang.
No!
This is the television game in which daring determines the fate of the player. This is the game of strategy, luck, and knowledge. This is Bullseye. Now, here's our host, Jim Lang.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. All
are. You're marvelous. You're great. And thank you for tuning by. And it is true, I'm sure you know, this is a game of strategy, knowledge, and especially daring.
So it all comes down to this, Jack. This is your 8th and final question of the game. If you answer this question correctly, you win the $1 million drop. If you answer this question incorrectly, unfortunately, you will lose the game. Would you like Match Game or Wheel of Fortune?
Wheel of Fortune.
Wheel of Fortune it is. And Jack, here are your 2 answer choices. A former football player or a former baseball player. And this is hopefully your winning question. In 1989, who replaced Pat Sajak as the host of the daytime version of Wheel of Fortune?
I gotta go football.
All in on football. You are correct. You won.
Yes, who was it?
It was Rolf Benirschke. Brad fact.
Benirschke, kicker for the Chargers. Wow.
Look at this studio filled with glamorous prizes, fabulous and exciting merchandise, including this. Escape to this fun-filled $16,000 vacation showcase. What an adorable piece of jewelry, this onyx and diamond panda necklace. Enjoy the luxury and design of this $14,700 sedan. Over $77,000 just waiting to be won today on Wheel of Fortune. And now, here's your hostess, Vanna White.
Thank you. This is very strange for me to be here, in this position, I should say, but today is a big day around here, for we have a new host of Wheel of Fortune, and I'd like to introduce you to him at this time. Please welcome the new host of the daytime Wheel of Fortune, Rolf Benirschke.
Hi, Vanna.
Welcome.
Thank you. Fun to be here. A little overwhelming, but it's exciting.
It is exciting, and we have a lot of weeks, years, months, and everything to be doing this. And before we get going, everybody knows about me. I've been around for 6 years, but no one knows anything about you. I think we should talk about you a little bit.
Well, okay. Some people know I played 10 years in the NFL. I was the place kicker for the San Diego Chargers, and never anticipated ever doing this. But 5 months ago, I was on a talk show in Los Angeles, and Merv Griffin was watching and tracked me down, called me up, and invited me up to meet him and consider hosting a new show that he was creating. And he called me back then about a month later and said, the Wheel of Fortune job is open, would you come up and audition? And I didn't think I did it that well, but he called me back up, and now here I am.
Merv knows how to pick them.
Well, I hope so. It's sure fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I don't, people really don't want to know about me or watch us here. I think we should start the game. What do you say we take a commercial break, come back, and we'll play our first round?
Okay.
All right.
We'll see you in a minute.
And thanks to Rolf Benirschke, congratulations, Jack. You have won this game of the $1 million drop.
Thank you. It's a great game.
Well, I hope you enjoyed playing a game that you produced.
I really did. And the stress on points, I can't imagine if it had been for money.
And that was the game of the day, the $1 million drop. The $1 million drop. Well, Jack, it has been such a delight having you on the game show today. So thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me about your game show producing career so far and for playing the $1 million drop.
Oh, thanks, Bradley. It's so much fun. What a great game, and thank you so much for having me.
Well, it was truly my pleasure. And thank you for all of the great years of game shows that you've provided to me throughout my childhood.
Oh, it was my pleasure. I'm so glad you enjoyed them. Had a great time making them.
And I can't wait to have you back on the game show for our Deal or No Deal and 1 vs. 100 anniversary celebration episode.
I'm looking forward to it. 2 great points in my career.
And of course, I'll have another game ready for you to play.
I can't wait, Bradley. Looking forward to it.
All right, Jack, take care, and I'm looking forward to chatting with you again soon.
Thanks, Bradley.
Bye-bye. And before this episode officially comes to an end, it's time for another Bradley Parody. Bradley Parody. This is a brand new feature on the game show in which I create a parody song about an aspect of this episode. And because Jack was a co-executive producer on the show Who's Still Standing, today's parody will be to the tune of Elton John's hit song, I'm Still Standing. So please enjoy Bradley Parody number 5, Who's Still Standing? You might never know what it's like to fall through the floor from a decent height, but there's a game on NBC in which that could come true, cause if you give an incorrect answer, the floor is what you'll drop through. On the screen is a question that looks like a puzzle from Wheel of Fortune. You have 20 seconds to think and shout, and if you wanna still keep standing, you better figure it out. Because on Who's Still Standing, the clock is not your friend. If it runs down to 0, then say bye to the million. And on Who's Still Standing, if you don't say the right answer, the floor will open and you just might land on your keister. Who's Still Standing with Ben Bailey? Who's Still Standing on NBC? Ben Bailey is the show's MC. We're used to seeing him drive a taxi, but now he's in a studio which contestants stand behind numbers 1 through 10, worth 1 to 20 grand. And on Who's Still Standing, it's a game of 1 versus 10. A hero stands in the middle, surrounded by 10 civilians. And on Who's Still Standing, the hero does not want to fall, cause to win $1 million, the hero must beat them all. Who's Still Standing with Ben Bailey? Who's Still Standing on NBC? And when you watch Who's Still Standing, you think you might know the game. It looks like Russian roulette. The drop zones are the same. But on Who's Still Standing, you don't pull a lever. The 10 players just want the hero to pick their number. Who's Still Standing with Ben Bailey? Who's Still Standing on NBC? Who's Still Standing with Ben Bailey? Who's Still Standing on NBC? I hope you're giving me a standing ovation after hearing my latest parody. And that was this episode's Bradley Parody. Bradley Parody. Well, I'm sorry to drop this piece of bad news on you, but we've reached the end of this episode of The Game Show. My thanks once again to game show producer Jack Martin for being my special guest today. Now don't feel miserable, because you can listen to this episode again, as well as my other episodes of The Game Show, including the episodes featuring game show producers Bob Bowden, Roger Dobkowitz, and Barry Posnick, by logging on to www.soundcloud.com/Bradley_Clarke. That's BRADLY_CLARKE/sets/The Game Show. That's www.soundcloud.com/Bradley_Clarke. That's BRADLY_CLARKE/sets/The Game Show. In addition, I'm excited to announce that The Game Show is now on YouTube. That's right, you can listen to all episodes, game segments, Bradley parodies, and more by going onto The Game Show's YouTube channel. And if you're a loyal friend and true, please remember to like and subscribe. Plus, don't forget to like The Game Show Starring Bradley Clarke on Facebook and follow The Game Show Starring Bradley Clarke on Twitter using the handle @TheGameShowBC and hashtag #TheGameShow. And of course, be sure to tune in next time for another exciting episode of The Talk Show, all about the world of television game and competition shows, The Game Show. I'm Bradley Clarke, the Bradster, and I've got to go memorize some song lyrics because you never know when someone might offer me money to sing a song back to them correctly. Bye for now.
This edition of The Game Show was created and produced by Bradley Clarke. This is Austin Angelo speaking.
The Game Show is a Bradley Clarke production. Get your game on.